Surviving as a driver in Formula One takes a lot of grit. Talent alone doesn't make the cut, when even the smallest mistake can cost you a championship down the line. Carlos Sainz must have realized that during the gruesome 2022 season, which saw him drop from the consistent form he picked up in 2021. He has now appeared in an interview to state his intention to take the Formula One world by storm this year. What magic could this tactically gifted young driver have in store for us? Keep watching to find out. Carlos Sainz was once called Consistent Carlos for a reason. Back in 2021, the Spaniard managed to finish every single race of the season. At the time, it was a huge accomplishment because that was only his first season with Ferrari. He was in such blazing form that he managed to secure 5th place in the Drivers' Championship and beat his teammate Charles Leclerc in the process. However, Sainz wasn't able to replicate that form in 2022. Even though the Scuderia Ferrari driver may have had a breakthrough 2022 season, winning his first Formula One race in the British Grand Prix and earning his first pole positions, he also retired 6 times in the same season. Most of the retirements were due to his mistakes or contact with other drivers. This meant he finished the year 62 points behind teammate Charles Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship, but he thinks that 2023 will see him return to the kind of consistency he knows he's capable of in order to compete for more race wins and, potentially, the championship. Sainz is hoping for a much more straightforward year in 2023, his 3rd season dressed in red. His troubles in 2022 started when he had 2 consecutive retirements at Melbourne and Imola. This created a ripple effect that ended up affecting his whole season. Despite the pressure that was mounting on him, he tried to pick himself up towards the end. At that time, he had a brief period when he was driving really well, but when the accident in Austin came, everything went crashing down. In that race, he had started from a pole position, but the car was just not ready for the win. In the end, he ended up dragging himself to the end of the season. Sainz is no quitter though. Even after the 2022 season went way worse than he could have ever imagined, he's been quick to put himself back together. His focus is fully on the upcoming season now, and it seems this exciting driver cannot wait to put last season behind him. Sainz has had a lot of ups and downs in his short career, but for his next outing in the Ferrari team, he hopes that there would be fewer down periods and a lot more high points. We better warn Verstappen to watch out for him when the wheels start rolling, because Consistent Carlos is coming for the World Championship with everything he has. Ever since he won his first race in Silverstone last year, Sainz realized that he has an enormous appetite for victory. Here's how he explained it. To win races, I already know what it is, but if you want to fight for the World Championship, you have to be consistent. Truer words have never been spoken. Carlos is ready to unlock another version of himself this year, and honestly, we just can't wait to see what he has in store for us. When explaining his analysis of the sport in the interview, he says that although Verstappen and Red Bull have been the stronger team, winning the championship basically boils down to securing the points on a regular basis. Having learned a lot of lessons from the past season, he's looking to apply all his knowledge to help him become the champion. If we look back at Ferrari's development, we'd see that last year was the first time in a long while that they had a really competitive car. Battling the other drivers with this car helped provide Sainz with invaluable experience, which he can take advantage of to improve in the future. He isn't being naive about his dream either, as he knows that in order to win, Team Ferrari has to step up their game. To put it simply, they need to develop more than Mercedes and Red Bull. Despite having the best race car of his career in 2022, courtesy to Ferrari's F175, Sainz believes that battling for a Formula One title feels both close and far away. Last season, Sainz was particularly vocal about a problem with the Ferrari car, which he claimed was an inherent design flaw that stopped him from making successful starts. Looking at areas where he believes Ferrari has to improve for 2023, Sainz brought this up again, along with the need for a more efficient operations crew. He thinks they need to be better at even the smallest things involved in executing races, such as starts or tire changes. The second point is, of course, strategy, and getting the proper decisions and tires on the car when the race day comes. Ferrari is working on something along that line for the 2023 season. If they want to beat Mercedes and Red Bull, it's a given that Ferrari must outperform them in terms of development. Another key factor that would play a big role when the races kick off would be Carlos's teammate, Charles Leclerc. Before activating his end-of-season switch-off button and beginning his process of recharging, the 2022 Formula One World Championship runner-up spoke with F1 correspondent Lawrence Barretto about his team's erratic campaign. The downsides are clear. The 24-year-old started the championship really well by leading the rest of the pack with a staggering 46 points after 3 races. That would have been a good sign if only he didn't finish the season 146 points behind champion Max Verstappen. He and his team made mistakes, which he has freely admitted. There was the spin in Imola that cost him a podium before the crash at Paul Ricard that cost him yet another win, but he's also been handicapped by team mistakes. Poor strategy decisions cost him the lead at Monaco, Silverstone, and Hungary. If you remember, his engine failed on 2 separate occasions when he was leading the field in Spain and Azerbaijan. Ferrari's lack of in-season development meant not only did they lose touch with the eventual runaway champions Red Bull, but in the closing stages were overhauled performance-wise by a Mercedes team that started the year mired in the midfield. It meant that after Spa, with 8 races still to go, Leclerc realized the title was likely gone. Spa was the first race where Sainz and Leclerc really struggled for pace. They had quite a huge point deficit, which was not easy to accept at the time. In the end, they had to give their best until the very end of the season, even though it was not enough to clinch victory. That's quite a list of troubles, but it's linked with signs of hope in what was, statistically, Ferrari's most successful campaign for quite some time. Charles had the most pole positions in 2022 with 9, making the most of a Ferrari team that was in its comfort zone way too often. He easily defeated teammate Carlos Sainz in qualifying, winning 15-7, and while it was closer in race trim, he won 12-9, winning 3 Grand Prix while Sainz won just 1. Once the dust has settled, Sainz should emerge ahead of the 2023 season in a stronger frame of mind. He says he'll take a lot of confidence into next year because Ferrari has taken steps to focus on the areas they need to improve. Those areas for improvement are focused on putting everything together perfectly. Ferrari did the difficult part for 2022. They created a fast race car that began the year as the best of all. Given how drastically the regulations have changed, that is a remarkable accomplishment. A brittle engine, on the other hand, meant that they not only paid for it early on, when they lost at least 2 Grand Prix wins, but they also endured grid penalty pain later on when they inevitably surpassed their authorized allocation of engine components. That's why it's believed that the power unit has been a significant focus of the team's resources and effort, with a primary focus on reliability in order to maximize the possible power output. Another major emphasis has been on tire management, which was the team's main weakness. They just couldn't get the rubber into the proper operating window, making it impossible for the drivers to make the tires last while competing. It's therefore up to Carlos Sainz to cut out the mistakes and get the job done on a consistent basis. We didn't get to see if he could do it last year, but every Ferrari fan is praying it all comes together in 2023. What do you think? Will we see a revived Carlos Sainz this year? Let us know who you think will win the championship in the coming season.